Hi YouTube fam! Welcome back to another episode of Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. Now today is something extra special. We're going to interview an ex-colleague of mine, a corporate rat who worked for years in the corporate rat race, and he broke out of that to start his own company, a FinTech solution company called FinHero. Now you might be wondering, why did he do that? Well, today we're going to uncover why in the world did he quit the rat race and start a world of entrepreneurship and venture into the unknown. Before we reveal our special guest, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to join our YouTube fam. You won't regret it. We've got lots in store for you. Hey guys, so this is Top, and just a little bit background on who Top is. Top and I used to work in an MNC back when I was in corporate, and he was my colleague for many years. Top, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Fran. Hey guys, my name is Top Lim. I'm 40 years old. I'm Malaysian, and my mom's Thai, so I do have a bit of Thai influence. I have two little beautiful girls, age of 5 and 7 years old.
And you're married, I hope?
Yes, and I'm married, still happily married, and I live in the lovely island of Penang, Malaysia.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about your corporate days? How long were you in corporate for? And how did you break out to co-found FinHero?
First of all, I studied in an international school in Penang, Uplands International School. Then I actually tried to do I went to college in Bangkok, which is not the greatest idea because there's a lot of parties. Unfortunately or fortunately, I dropped out. After 18 months, I didn't think that I was the one to be sitting in front of lectures for another couple more years listening to people. So I decided to give the real world a try. I landed in Dell. That's where I met you, Fran.
Yeah.
And in and out, Dell, a couple of banks. I was in the corporate space for about a good 18, 19 years in total.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what made you say, enough is enough, I'm getting out of here, I'm dying to be my own boss?
Yeah, so I think the last role that I had in the corporate space was I was a program manager for Dell. We were doing financial services. So I held mostly the Southeast Asian portfolio. I took care of Japan, Australia. The key moment that kind of made me realize was when I had dinner with one of the GMs of one of the largest leasing companies in the region, and when I asked him, he was actually going to retire that year. So we were having dinner. I asked him, "Hey, just curious, how long have you been with this leasing company?" And he told me this was my first job until today, which is 37 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
That is a very long time. And at that time, I was still only in my early 30s. So that particular night, I could not sleep, right? No joke, I had cold sweats because at that time I was already working more than 15 years, almost 15 years. And I was asking myself, so if I was to be in a corporate space to do the whole works, retire, that's probably like another 25, 30 years. Which I probably couldn't see myself doing. So that was the kind of trigger point to make me think, right? Okay, if I'm not going to be able to do this till the official retirement age, then what am I going to do, right? So that was the trigger point to make me consider what I'm going to do, and I ended up starting FinHero, a FinTech company, and doing what we're doing now.
Wow, thank you for sharing with us your wake-up moment. That must have been a light bulb moment.
Yeah, it sure was.
So when you first started FinHero, were there any fears that you had because you were a newborn entrepreneur, and how do you overcome those fears?
Well, at the point of me deciding to quit the corporate world and to start up a FinTech business, to be fair, it was about probably a good 12 to 18 months of preparation and thinking and planning before I actually pulled the trigger and left. When I was about to start, actually my wife was actually pregnant with our youngest child, Chloe. She's now 5. So in terms of financial commitments to maintain the lifestyle that I had, it's a relatively high commitment in Malaysia and probably some parts of the world. So the financial commitments to make sure that I could provide my family was probably one of the fear factors, right? To make this to start this journey. So fortunately enough for me, I had some kind of payout package from my previous employer, which gave me some runway to make sure that I could sustain my family and maintain the lifestyle. Looking at the numbers, looking at my finances, looking at what assets I had and all this kind of stuff. And of course, speaking to my wife and my family, got their blessing and support. So that kind of made me make that jump.
Can you tell us more about FinHero, your baby?
Sure. So FinHero, we position ourselves as a FinTech solutions provider. So FinTech is financial technology. So because of my corporate experience, naturally, we're building platforms initially for business-to-business financing solutions. So the likes of invoice factoring, leasing, working capital. We've got some experience doing some P2P regulated platforms as well. Ultimately, if you look at it from a layman's perspective, we just digitalize what is working today in the financial world. Our core product or core proprietary technology is our credit processing engine, which basically automates a credit data analyst job today. It will look at bank statements, audited financials, SSM documents, all the good stuff that you would need to submit when you apply for some sort of financing. So I'm very proud of the technology because in our solution, with our OCR and AI engine, we can do a proper full credit review of a business within less than 5 minutes. Something which takes the traditional world, 2 to 3 weeks at the very least, or if not months at times.
So you got AI right there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, AI is a buzzword today, but we started this technology, we looked at this technology 4 or 5 years ago. What we have today, in my personal view, it's still scratching the surface. In fact, today we just had calls and looking at various technologies on how do we implement deep learning, NLP technologies to make the AI much smarter. So my personal aspiration with the company is obviously we're going to build a financing solution with our core engine, credit processing, to be much better than even what humans can do today. And most importantly, it shortens the whole turnaround time, particularly in this climate where liquidity is a problem. And that was one of the key factors that I want to fix. It was to shorten that time, set the expectations, no hidden costs and all this kind of stuff, so people can get their liquidity, if not move on and find the next solution to fuel their business and grow.
So Top, I'm sure as an entrepreneur and a first-time businessman, there must have been some failures or setbacks. Can you share more on those? When
you're starting off a business, right, I think, one of the things I always tell my peers, my friends, my colleagues is, you have to ask yourself, like, are you going to start a freelance business, or are you really going to start a business where you want to scale and make it international, right? Unicorn, whatever it is. If it's freelance, then that's pretty straightforward, right? It's ultimately you trading your own talent and services in exchange for some money, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, I chose the latter, which is to build a technology company and to do things that has never been done before, right, in the industry. And for that, you really do need a strong financial stamina to handle all the mistakes, right, that you're going to get or you're going to face until you generate your first dollar. Right, and first dollar, when you're building new proprietary technology, you need a team to be able to build all those process flows and all that good stuff, right? So you come out with this technology. So, cash flow remains a challenge. Unfortunately, when you throw COVID right smack in the middle of things, that doesn't help at all. And unfortunately, the market today, the climate still remains very fragile and still very unpredictable because of geopolitics and all the stuff that's going on. So the cash flow challenges is something that most businesses need to understand, particularly when you're doing a real business which you want to scale.
Yeah. We've both been corporate employees before, and then now we're broken out, right? So in your experience, what's the main difference that you've noticed between a corporate employee and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think there's no right or no wrong, and both have their pros and cons. But I think the main thing that does affect myself in the business and I see is the efficiencies in a lot of the corporate meetings I have. When I'm doing some of the projects and what I want to get in target. So for example, I noticed when I was in the corporate world, most meetings were set for 1 hour, right? Online calls. Actually, if you think about it, when we think back in the days, you go on, you talk about the weather, how you're in America, various parts of the world, and that kills probably 10, 15 minutes, right? Before you get into the real deal. So what I try to do these days is, because time is limited, time value money. So I keep the calls to usually 30 minutes, right, or less. So I only set it for 30 minutes, and I can still get what result I want and the outcome I want within 15 to 30 minutes. So I think the corporate space, I think there's a lot of going around the bush, beating around the bush and not getting to the point. Whereas a lot of things is pretty straightforward, is yes and no's, and I think that's the biggest difference, is the efficiencies on how we deal with problems.
What about the productivity level for yourself as an entrepreneur? Is it getting higher or is it lower?
Yeah, that's always going to be a tough challenge, and the balance that I try to strike. Obviously, the reality, me as the co-founder and the CEO of the company, I want to do things as fast as possible. But I can't always expect everyone to be running at my pace, right? For obvious reasons.
What are your thoughts on productivity as an employee versus a business owner?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, right? Because of the new norm after the pandemic, I think there's a kind of tussle between work from home or do you come back to the office. I think one of the key things that I noticed today is that a lot of companies are now asking their employees to go back to work like 4 or 5 days a week.
That's right.
To fight the traffic 1-2 hours each way, whatever it is. Over there, I think there's a lot of unproductivity there. So luckily for FinHero, we're a startup, and I'm very used to working remotely and working with people around the world. So I definitely find the efficiencies in working remotely. But however, when you work remotely, there are processes and systems and reportings which you need to put in place, right? So you can make sure and manage the company and the team to make sure that we are producing what we need to produce. However, the inefficiencies that I see in the past when I was in the corporate world, and I still see some today, is coming to the office, whether you're clocking at 8 or 9, and then you kind of go make your coffee, have a chat with your colleagues, half an hour, check your emails, go for another coffee, smoke breaks. All those are inefficiencies which I see a lot in the office till today.
Yeah, and why that is because as a corporate employee, we've already sold our time to the man. Right? So essentially what every corporate employee is actually doing is just running down the clock Monday to Friday so that they can go back and live their real lives. So that's what I think.
Yeah, so exactly that, right? I mean, unfortunately, the reality of corporate space is you're actually trading your time for money.
Yep.
Right? And it's natural as a human being or as an employee, you want to maximize that time so you can get paid more.
Yeah.
Right? And these are the inefficiencies in between that I see a lot in the working space. However, it's a very natural thing. We're all humans. But since we're talking on technical productivities and efficiencies, this is what I can observe.
And as a business owner, does that frustrate you in terms of the productivity from corporate employees?
Well, the good thing is my company, we're small, we're nimble, and we're very efficient, right? We all wear multiple hats. I'm more outcome-based, right? So I don't really care, how many hours you put in. I don't believe about how many hours you put in, right? It's about what you put in the hours. So that's how I measure things. And most importantly, you need to be realistic with the people you work with, have clear targets as much as you can. and motivate the team, work together, and achieve the results that you want.
For anyone watching this video, do you have any advice for someone who may want to start their own business, Top?
When you want to start a business, you have to ask yourself, right? Are you doing a freelance business, or are you trying to build a business where you can scale and go international? Because they're two very different things. The other thing is you have to be realistic with your financial commitments, right? Whether you're a bachelor, whether you have a family, how many kids you have. I think in terms of financial planning, basically you need to have at least, at the bare minimum, at least 1 year runway, best 2 year runway.
Yep.
Right? So you can sustain all, the unforeseen circumstances that you will face. And another point is, I've spoken to I've come across many of my peers, entrepreneurs and whatnot. I get really turned off by entrepreneurs saying that I'm doing business because, I want to drive a Lamborghini for all this material stuff. Mm-hmm. I started the business because I want to solve a problem. And the problem I want to solve was, just making the whole financing landscape much more transparent and much more efficient. So when you want to start a business, you really want to ask yourself, right? Are you solving a problem? Because when you solve problems, that's when you can monetize that opportunity. However, if it's just a Me Too idea, trying to copy another platform, whatever out there, then you may want to think your model again.
Excellent. And there you have it, guys. This is the first interview that I'm having with an entrepreneur, and stay tuned because there will be more upcoming interviews with entrepreneurs along the way. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe so that you can join our YouTube fam and you can get access to all our interview series videos and more. Thank you, Top, so much for this interview. And guys, I hope you learned something. And once again, thank you so much and bye.
Bye.